Hey everyone, Sean here, and welcome to my review for Invincible in its third season, which is the superhero anime series on Amazon, Amazon Prime Video to be more specific. Along with some series like The Boys and such, I feel like Invincible has been kind of up there within the superhero scope. I think it continues to sort of being pretty consistent for the most part in comparison to other superhero franchises, especially with the MCU. And we all know how a lot of people, like myself, have been feeling, besides the general audience, about, like the whole fatigue thing and the lack of just elegant writing and stuff like that. While Invincible isn't, like entirely perfect by any means, but it's been really, really good in a good number of areas for season three in particular. While it does have some very obvious discrepancies, or I guess you could say negatives, which is a more appropriate term, and simple enough to understand what are the shortcomings, at least for this season. I'm gonna go ahead and address the elephant in the room when it comes to the third season here for Invincible, and obviously it's that the animation has been taking a little kick in the balls, as one may say, and unfortunately, I can definitely agree on that. A number of scenes where, it really calls for such animation quality. I think it really lacks in those areas, especially during the earlier episodes. I think the first three episodes, that's when they first debuted this season. It came out with three episodes at the start, and the rest of it will be weekly. But getting back to it, the animation, yes, especially even during like the fights, a lot of those fights were lacking in sort of that juicy quality that we should look forward to in these types of shows. Now, with episode 4, it did get a little better, I say, at least, and while featuring a return of a pretty beloved character up to this point. But yes, so that is definitely something. Hopefully, that could get addressed for in the future, but hopefully the later episodes, the rest of them anyway, from 5 to 8, hopefully will kind of like level that out, and that's something we could sort of overlook, or bat an eye, because of the other things that have been really been doing pretty well, which is the storytelling, the writing. Has been very, very, very satiating. I think is a good word for it. There's a lot of side plots or subplots, you could say, that have been happening sort of left and right, relatively, but they're all well paced, well sort of well written, right? Especially with what Marcus is dealing. Even the characters like what Cecil's dealing, of course, the people at the Guardians of the Globe. We got Adam Eve, right, dealing with her stuff as well. There's a lot of characters dealing with their stuff, and of course, Mark's mom, right, especially what happened after her and Nolan, right, their relationship, especially after season 1, and just how long she's been dealing with this stuff up to this point. And then we even have newly introduced characters like Oliver. As we kind of know from the trailers, he's a little more grown up, right? He's now a kid capable of talking. So now he's sort of starting to able to express the things that he sees and such like that, and what he experiences thus far, very quickly, right? As we know from season 2, what Oliver is and where he comes from. Obviously half brother and such like that gets together, which meaning well, from excuse me, from Omni-Man's side or Nolan's side, he gets together with another alien and stuff like that, and that was a whole nother subplot as well. But anyways, we are also about to deal with another character, but that kind of left us hanging in the cliffhanger in the very last part of episode 4, I believe. And even kind of returns to the sort of running gag, I guess you could say, of the narrator, doing his thing, like, oh, while Mark and such and such are doing their thing, we're gonna go to another character and such like that, kind of like what they sort of did in season 2, which is a little tasteful gag. It's kind of a little self-aware-ish, and at the same time pokes fun at some other things as well. I mean, Invincible is kind of like that as well throughout the show. But anyway, so these subplots, sorry if I'm kind of going all over the place, have been well, placed, have been well written, and they have been executed pretty well. Not only the writing is very, very satiating, like I said, the voice work really, really also adds that nice touch to it as well. It's pretty much like the frosting on top of the cake, right? You have a good writing as the base, but then you have that extra sweetness, right, with that nice voice acting performances from Steven Yeun and stuff like that as Mark, and so on and so forth. We even have a lot of people coming in later on to show off their voices for each character, of course, with their appropriate roles and stuff like that. This season thus far also really plays around with the morals really well. It really plays two sides for the most part well. Obviously, each person will have their opinions about what's been going on thus far in this season. It's really, conflicts about, saving people versus trying to do the right thing and stuff like that, which is, it's way more deeper than one would think, right? When you're looking from the outside in, and until you actually become a hero of sorts, versus like someone who works in a government or whatever and such, and do whatever it takes to achieve the objective, right? Things start to clash because of how things are done. What methods are you being used to achieve said task, right? You have the moral ground versus the sort of, it's almost like the blue pill versus the red pill kind of thing, or something that's very reminiscent of Civil War, where you have Team Cap, Team Iron Man, that stuff, or Team Rogers versus Team Stark, whatever you want to call it. Very reminiscent of that, because I think, in my opinion, there is really no right answer for the most part. And of course each side has both their pros and cons. I think they're both right and both wrong as well, right? But I mean, if we're really going to be real, there is a bit of hypocrisy on somebody's part and such like that. And once I get into spoilers, which I'll probably do in a separate video or maybe in the same one, it'll start to make sense. But it is a good conversation piece to be had, just to discuss who's right, who's wrong. Does he have double standards? Is this person whatever, right? Is this person entitled? Is this person not? And do you like this character? Do you hate this character? Why, right? It really makes for a really nice discussion, depending on who you're talking to, of course, right? If you just present this to somebody who just really doesn't watch these things, then it could be a whole nother thing. But if you're talking to somebody who also watches Invincible, then it really starts to gets things going, right, in the conversation piece. So I think this is what this is thus far. It does also start to plant seeds, more seeds than ever, right, of what's to come. It really sets these gears going, right? And raises some questions as to what really is going to happen and such like that. A lot of foreshadowing for sure. There's still a lot of foreshadowing going on. It still kind of feels like not all engines are firing up, and I think, and I say that in the nicest way. And and again, if one to were to watch this, it you know will make sense of what I mean. I don't really want to give it an official rating from me, but if I were to give it a rating right now, I think it's like a pretty good 8 out of 10. There are some imperfections that are obviously, right there in front of your face, and like literally, which is the sort of lack of that quality animation that we should look forward to. It's really just funny to see the promos getting a lot more of that love in terms of the style and everything. I mean, the way the characters move and everything. The style, I have kind of mixed feelings about it, right? I like it, but at the same time, I think it could use very sort of stark areas of improvements, if that makes sense. Maybe it's the shading, maybe it's the coloring, detailing, and stuff like that. I mean, the colors are very flat, and it's just very kind of one-dimensional, if I'm gonna be honest. But it kind of just gets the job done. There's color, yes. There are people's skin tones, yes, right. These costumes are brightly colored, yes, but pretty distinct from each other, yes. But there could be more detail. Obviously, it's not gonna be just like the comics. If you've even taken a look at them, very very different kind of art styling, right? Obviously, this is a little more on the anime-ish side, like Western anime side. But if you look at the comic books, obviously very Westerny in comparison. Very, you can really see with the expressions, right, in their mouths and everything, how they do their chins, and especially when they get roughed up or they're just talking or very exasperating everything or their words or whatever. If that kind of makes sense. So it does, it does cry for some obvious improvements, but at the same time, whenever the big moments happen, you kind of start to just forget about it, right? Whenever things are really going, you tend to forget about it, and I think that's where, that's why the story, the writing, and the dialogue and everything, it's very helpful to help forget about that. And you kind of can take it for what it is. But, could it have a little more panache to it? Absolutely. Could it use a little more spice? Absolutely. Right. Right now, a lot of the, like I said, the writing and the voice work and everything else is doing, well, literally the talking. So if you're, looking for a show that's very stylish, you're not gonna find it here. I think that's what we come to in terms of, right? You're not here for the styling, but you're just here to sort of really see a mature take, if you will, on these subjects, right? When you're a hero, there's a lot more to it than just saving the world and stuff like that. There's a lot of responsibilities that you don't really think about that they actually kind of present it here. The Boys does the same thing, but Invincible is a different thing. But it kind of just tackles it differently, and it definitely stands on its own in a very good way, right? And yes, the gore is still there. There hasn't been any censorship or holding back or pulling back on anything. It's very consistent, like I've been saying. It's been consistent on that quality for the writing and story and stuff like that, but also just not holding back on the graphic violence, right? And I think it's been doing it pretty tastefully whenever it kind of asks for it, it's not like, every single time people get really messed up or anything like that. But when the wheels are really starting to spin, that's when things are really going right. The characters themselves, speaking on the writing, have been very satiating because of the good writing and everything. There's no character that I just outright hate. A long time ago it was Amber, but then I've come to terms with this version of Amber in this show, right? I mean, sometimes even there are just people that are just entitled, and it is what it is, right? There's the whole thing about the soup kitchen and whatever, but you know what? Sometimes there are people that are just like that, and I kind of come to terms with it, right? Especially when I go to work, and sometimes they've hired new people. Sometimes there's just a couple people, right? I mean, there's always a couple of great people to be introduced to, but then you have always the other side, right? Like those people you're just absolutely they are very hard to work with. I'm gonna put that kind of, but it is what it is. Sometimes, yeah, there are people who just feel entitled. There are people who are very nice and just hard workers and stuff like that. And there are just people who are just outright shitty, right? And that's kind of what's happening here, right? Even with, people that just outright are just unlikable, right, in this show, like Duplicate and The Immortal and stuff like that. Not everyone's going to be this, like, golden boy or anything like that. I mean, that's kind of like what Mark is, but even he have moments where you kind of want to just slap him for a moment and be like, dude, wake up, right? And that's what kind of makes this a little more organic, a little more, like I've been saying, very satiating. It feels like I am getting something in that sort of entertainment stomach, right? That's what I've been feeling with this show throughout, right? Season 1, season 2, season 3, at least so far anyway. And like I've been saying, even Cecil is going through some stuff. And there are two sides to that as well. Like, do you like Cecil? Do you think Cecil is a complete piece of shit? Right? There's a very good quote that comes from the show as well. And that's something for you guys to find out. But I will mention it in the spoiler side of things. So, and then I guess anything else that I didn't really mention too much. The music is kind of just there. I don't hate it, but it's nothing. You're not gonna be talking about the music. Let's just put it that way. You're really gonna be more talking about, of course, Invincible himself, the characters, some of the fights, the moments, Cecil, right, especially, Nolan, Debbie, all that stuff. So, the moral compass really goes around in this season too, or season as well, I should say. I mean, I think this whole series is very around the compass, if that makes sense. But and I think that's a really cool quality that this show has over a lot of the superhero media out there. Even The Boys does it in its own way, right? And that's why I've been really liking these types of shows over a lot of the Marvel stuff that I've seen in my days. So let's round it off with the trivia stuff. This will go on until I think March 13th, with 8 episodes. This did premiere with the first 3, like I said. No mid-season breaks, so that's great. That's like the one worst part about season 2, easily. Otherwise, if you can watch season 2 in one go, that's like, it's such a different thing, right? Here, we're not gonna see that. But yeah, um, 8 episodes. They're about an hour each, ish, more or less, and um, and that's pretty much it, right? So it's going to be interesting to see, though, what's going to be happening in the future, because there's been word on the street that they want to start to really get the distribution going, right? So they want to have this become a yearly thing, but I rather have them take their time to really try to up the ante with the quality of the animation and everything, versus, well, just yeah, being able to watch it and continue to satiate said stomach with Invincible. You know, it's, do you want that cake just to eat it, or do you want to actually, let it stay in the oven a little longer to actually really develop, right? Or put keep that dough in the fridge a little longer to for the dough to develop for things like pizzas and stuff like that, right? When it comes to pizzas and other such bread kind of recipes and stuff like that. But you know, we'll see. We'll definitely see. So that's pretty much it on the review portion of things. That's all I got for Invincible without spoiling things. There's still more things to come for right now. So of course, this is for episodes 1 through 4, just to make things clear. And I definitely look forward to the other half. Episode 5 should be out pretty soon. And again, I really look forward to it. I've been very much enjoying it still with Invincible. So anyways, that's pretty much it. I think I said I gave an 8 out of 10. If you have any comments about Invincible thus far for season 3, let me know down below. Love to read them. Of course, if you plan to talk about spoilers, at least be careful with how you present them, because people don't want to see it right away, right? So take that as you will. Anyways, again, thank you very much, and I will see you guys in the spoiler portion of things. But either way, see you in the next one. Sean out.